All right. Good evening, everyone. Oh, that was just too dismal. Can we try it one more time? Let's let our speaker, Walt Cross, know that we're excited to have him here. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. All right, so glad you're here, and so glad that you have. How many of you were here last night at the community hall? Great, fantastic. Anyone new? Anyone come first time tonight? Great, so glad that you've come. And I know there's a wealth of information. Hopefully you've brought a pen, pencil, pad of paper. There's a lot that you're going to want to write down. After the presentation this evening, Walt will be going through question and answers. It's real helpful. Oh, you've got a whole stack here that you're going to be going through. So this will be great. Well, if you don't mind, most of you have met Walt, and he told me to just introduce him as Walt Cross is here. So that's that's how I'm going to introduce him. Of course, he's known for Old Mountain Remedies and the information that God has given him to help bless others as they face physical disease. And I know the Lord has just given you a heart for people, Walt, and we really appreciate that. Can we open with prayer? You mind? Let's bow our heads together. Father in heaven, we want to just invite your presence here to be with us. Bless us as we look at your natural remedies. And I pray that you would be with Brother Walt as he shares. And I ask this in your name. Amen. Thank you.
Hello? There we go. Well, good evening, y'all. All right. Can you hear me okay? Good. Well, this last night is one of my favorite. Tonight's another favorite that I enjoy talking about. And I like talking about Old Mountain Remedies. Just simple things that we have at home, whether it's in our kitchen or whether we have in our backyard, that we can use for addressing health issues. So let's jump into it if we can. Whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God, in 1 Corinthians. Let's see here. When we look at health issues, it's so easy to get tunnel vision and look at, like last night we were talking, how are you doing, ma'am? It's so good to see you. It's when we have health issues, it's so easy to, like the first one we're going to talk about wounds. And it's so easy to look at that wound and say, here's what we got to do. But we miss the whole picture. And we need to look at these 8 laws. These 8 laws are the foundation to health. It's the key to health. You know, how's the nutrition, the fuel? How's the exercise, the water, the sunshine, temperance? That's just making right decisions. I used to think it was just don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs, but it's more than that. Are you listening to gossiping? What are you watching on TV? Are you gaming all the time? It's temperance, moderation in the good stuff, and total abstinence in the bad stuff. Fresh air, rest, and trust in divine power. And that's the powerful thing that you got to have. So those basic laws, we don't want to forget about those. And it's so easy to get that tunnel vision. Let me just jump through here. There's so much to cover tonight. Let's just jump right into it. Remedies by diagnosis. I like wound care. Wound care is so much fun. And let me turn this down here. Or y'all hear my fire calls, and you don't need to hear my fire calls. Okay. So I like wound care. I liked wound care when I worked in regular health care. I enjoy wound care now because there's so many people who have wounds and they don't get really to root causes. They don't address what's going on. An example, a decube. If you have a pressure ulcer or that type of a wound, you've got to you've got to get to what is the cause. And many times it is the pressure. You know, again, you're stopping that circulation, that capillary flow. I used to have a device that I would go and I would put it underneath the patient, and you could pump it up and you could tell what that pressure was against the skin. And the keys there is what kind of a bed are they on? Is there some type of a bed? The best bed in the world that I've ever found is called a Clinitron bed. It's made by the VA. It was designed by the VA. It's like an air hockey table that has glass beads in it, and it will float actually. But do you have some type of a good air mattress or water mattress or whatever to prevent that capillary flow from decreasing? What is their nutrition? They've got to have good nutrition. And so anytime you have wounds, my favorite nutrition is juicing. Get that person to juice. Who's watched the movie Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead? I encourage y'all to watch that. It's a documentary out of Australia, and it shows the benefits and how to juice. And when you juice, it's like doing hyperal. It's like, putting that nutrient straight into the blood. Regular digestion will take 2.5 to 5 hours to digest that meal. When you're juicing, and I'm juicing on the vegetable side, not on the fruit side, and you pull that fiber out, it's going to be in the blood within 15 to 20 minutes. And it's phenomenal, the nutritional value these people get. So here's a simple wound. Here's a foot that we had. Take a particular look to his heel. Notice what's going on here. Their physician called me and they said, Walt, they're wanting to amputate this foot. Can you help us out? And I said, let's see what we can do. This is in 2 weeks. We're starting to have some decent closure there. The man, he's a diabetic. He also has osteomyelitis, which is infection in the bone. But look how we're filling out decent there. That's in 2 weeks. That's in 4 weeks. Notice here we've got full closure on the heel, and it's ready for a skin graft. And so what did we do? What's the first thing we did? We prayed, because it's God that does the healing. It's God that gives you the discernment. It's not a cookie cutter. So what I share with you tonight, it's not that for everybody, for every situation, because everyone is different. And, people react differently. They have a different body chemistry. They have different situations. And so you go to the medical director. God's the medical director. And ask him what you need to do. And then, so what we did here, first thing is nutrition. And so we juiced him for the 30 days. He did 16 ounces of vegetable juice, breakfast, dinner, and supper. Now, dinner for me is at the noontime, and Nancy understands that from being down in Georgia. And so we gave him juicing in order to get that good nutrition to that foot. He has osteomyelitis, so we want to kill that infection. And so we used Allimed. We did 1 teaspoon twice a day there. And then to address the foot, to address the foot, we did hydrotherapy. And a lot of folks say, Walt, you can't do hot and cold. Well, that's true. You can't do hot and cold, but you can do warm and cool. Now, textbook says 102, 103 on the warm side, 70 on the cold side. Do 100, because you can actually blister a foot at 103. Go to 100. I've never had blistering at 100. And so you do the warm for 3 minutes, and you do the cool for 1 minute. I'm sorry, the warm for 3 minutes, the cool for 1 minute. The warm for 3 minutes, the cool for 1 minute. You got vasodilation, vasoconstriction, vasodilation, vasoconstriction. The key to health, perfect circulation. Perfect health is perfect circulation. You've got to have adequate blood flow. And so you're increasing that blood flow to that region by doing the hydrotherapy. We quit doing hydrotherapy in healthcare around 1992 when the intermediaries quit paying us, because we used to do it in physical therapy, but the intermediaries said it was cheaper to do drugs. They said it was too labor intensive. And so we got rid of hydrotherapy, a lot of hydrotherapy in PT at that time. And so we did the hydrotherapy, the warm, the cool, the warm, the cool, 3 minutes, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 1 minute, 7 times, twice a day. So let's say it's the morning, so we do the hydrotherapy. And then, again, we've got an infection here, so we sprayed it with the Allimed. And Allimed is a very strong garlic. It has 24 cloves of garlic in each drop. And then we put a salve on there. And the salve is 1 part golden seal, 1 part myrrh, 1 part frankincense. What's that sound like? Yeah, it sounds like the wise men, doesn't it? And then we put on him we use bee propolis, pine sap. Who's used pine sap? Pine sap is phenomenal. And so we'll use a half to a part of pine sap, and then we'll put a 1.5 to 2 parts aloe vera gel. I like the gel better than the juice. I just like the consistency of it better. But you can do juice if you want to. You can make your own aloe vera gel. Just take your aloe vera plant. You can cut and fillet the inner part, put it in a blender, make a gel, and then put that in there. And so it's 1 part golden seal, 1 part myrrh, 1 part frankincense, a half to a part of the pine sap. You can put bee propolis in there, and you can put the aloe vera. And I mix the powders first, then I put in the pine sap. Do not mix the pine sap in there yet, because it'd just be all goopy on you. And so you then put in your aloe vera, and then you can mix it, and it's not as sticky and goopy. You want the consistency of pancake batter. The consistency of pancake batter. You don't want it thick and gumpy. You don't want to fill it like we did with betadine and brown sugar. You want to kind of paint it on there, because you want it to slough off 12 hours later when you again do another another hydrotherapy. And so you want it to slough off then. So you just kind of paint it on there, kind of drizzle it on there somewhere or another. You can drop it on, with a spoon or you don't want to touch it. It's going to be painful. And then because we have, again, an infection, we did a charcoal poultice. And that's what we did. Again, we have this in 2 weeks. This is in 4 weeks. And so it's ready for the skin graft. The osteomyelitis is gone. He was diabetic, and the diabetes was now under control with the diet, and it worked very well. So wounds, you want to, if they're infected, you want to clean the wound. The hydrotherapy, warm and cool, not hot and cold. The salve, golden seal, myrrh, aloe vera, pine sap, pine oil. If you don't have pine sap, you can use pine oil, an essential oil, pine oil. Or you can put bee propolis. Other things, honey is very good. What's the best honey for wounds? Manuka, yes. And the FDA has approved Manuka honey. It's expensive, but if you have honey, just make sure it's 100% honey, or as we call it, plum honey, only honey. You have to watch some people. Some APRS will cut it with high fructose corn syrup, and you don't want that in there, or whatever. And so you can use honey. You can do a charcoal poultice. You can do a cabbage poultice. But this is very important, and I need to really make this clear. Wounds do not heal well when the person smokes. I had a guy come into me. He had a very small wound. I mean, we're talking a wound that was the tip of a ring finger here. I mean, it was a very small one. He had been to VA, been there for months, trying to get it going back and forth to the VA. It wouldn't heal. And he came, and we were working on it, doing what we talked here, but it wouldn't heal. So I called a buddy of mine. One of y'all were with me today when I got a call from him. He's a surgeon in D.C., a good friend of mine I work with a lot. And I called him, and I said, here's what's going on. What do you think? And he said, what did you do? I told him. He said, yeah, that's what we're doing. And he's thinking, that should be healing. Does he smoke? And I go, that's it. Yes, I forgot. He smokes. He goes, it ain't going to heal. I said, you're right. It won't. I just forgot it. So I went out to the man and I said, sir, I apologize, but your foot's not going to heal. It was on his ankle, unless you stop smoking. We've got to have good vascular flow. See, you need that capillary flow, and tobacco is a vasoconstrictor. It's going to not provide adequate circulation. And he goes, I'm not quitting smoking. And I said, sir, there's nothing else I can do. Obviously, what I tried is not working. You need better blood flow. There's nothing else I can do. He left, and I never saw him again. Good nutrition. Wounds, and if any of y'all have ever worked in wound care, you know the importance of looking at those labs, making sure you have good nutrition. Pine sap. Who's ever used pine sap? Oh, it's great. It's amazing. I mean, you just go bark a pine tree if the sap's up and put it on whatever. All 6 of my grandkids have used it for cutting teeth. It works really good. Just put it on there and it helps with cutting teeth. Yes, ma'am? No, ma'am. That's a good question. Just any kind of pine sap. Mm-hmm. It's good for wounds. Now, be careful with wounds and pine sap. Pine sap heals the wound so fast, you do not want to put pine sap on a puncture wound. A dog bite, a cat bite, a nail puncture, because it heals so fast that the top can heal and you still have that pathogen underneath unless you've irrigated it out well, and you can that wound can tunnel back out. And so be careful on puncture wounds. It's great on lacerations and abrasions and, that big old wound there. It works fine for those kind of things. A knife cut that you can get in there and put that pine sap in there. Who knows Franklin Cobos? You probably know. You know Franklin? He was emergency medicine. Then he went into anesthesia. He taught anesthesia. Mary Lou one time cut her hand wide open. We were working in the garden and she did something, cut her hand slap open. And so I took her over to the office, and Franklin was there, and he said, can I do some experimenting? I said, sure. He said, I've done it before. Can I do it on her? Yeah. And so he just put pine sap inside the wound and then sutured it up, and it heals much faster. Much faster. Pine sap's good for gum disease, mouth sores. On mouth sores, many times mouth sores are digestive issues. Gut issues, the stomach, the colon, and you want to rule that out. Immune system. I was teaching a class like last night, a number of years ago, about 23 years ago, and there's a lady back in that back corner, and she raised her hand. Now, we're not too wise if we don't listen to people older than us. Would you agree? Listen to the folks who are older. They have a lot of wisdom that we may not have run that road yet. I said, yes, ma'am. And she says, can I tell you something? She says, when I was a little girl in 1918, pay attention. She says, my daddy is a nurse, and he'd go from house to house treating sick patients with the flu. What flu was it? The Spanish flu. The Spanish influenza. That Spanish flu, 1917, 1918. And, 1918 and 1919 is when it was. And she said, my daddy'd take me and my brother from house to house. Do you think that got my attention? Absolutely, that got my attention. And when we get home, she said he would take a pine knot and put it over a fire. They lived in Southern California. And take a pine knot, put it over a fire, and it would cause the pine sap to drip out into a glass of water. And we'd all drink out of that same glass. He'd drink it, my brother would drink it, and I'd drink it, she said. And we did that every night. Well, my question was, how many drops, how much water? And she goes, I don't know, I was a little girl, but kept us from getting sick. Later, I came home back to East Tennessee, and I would have, and this was 19 years ago, almost 20 years ago, and I'd have these ladies come in to the store, and they would be in their 80s, and they'd say, well, let me tell you about pine sap. Yes? Well, one lady took it and put it and rubbed it all over her gums, and she said, that's what you do, and just to get the immune system up. But they would tell me it didn't matter if they were from Dario, or if they were from Grassy, or if they were from Cosby. They say that their grandmas would send them to school, or their mamas would send them to school in the morning. They didn't have school buses back then. And they would chew on a piece of pine rosin the size of a match head. That's what the size every one of them women would talk about. And there were a different set of mountains through there. or communities through that mountain range, the size of a match head. And they would chew that on the way to work, to school every morning, and it would keep them getting sick. And so pine sap can help in small amounts for building the immune system. Cutting teeth, I mentioned that. My grandkids use it. Works very well. It can help with pain, headaches. Activated charcoal. Who's used charcoal before? Charcoal's, whoa, it's amazing. Charcoal does not absorb. Charcoal adsorbs. There's a difference. Let's say my phone here is a sponge, and I have some, and I've got flour all over the thing here. Some people call it flour, but what we call it flour. And you take it, and this is dry, and I rub it on the outside, and it sticks to the outside. That is adsorb. It sticks to the outside. But if there's water on here, and I take my sponge across it, the sponge is going to absorb it. Well, so it sticks to this area. They tell us that just 1 teaspoon of activated charcoal has the surface area of a football field. So that's a lot of surface area that things can stick to. You can actually wash charcoal. They do that in industry, and they reuse it over and over. I have a customer. She has a PhD, and her specialty at Oak Ridge National Laboratories. Who's ever heard of Oak Ridge National Laboratories? The Manhattan Project. She works over there. And her specialty working there is using activated charcoal, activated charcoal. And there's a difference in charcoal and activated charcoal. For years, thousands of years, they used charcoal. Activated charcoal didn't really come around until the early 1900s. Who knows what a backdraft is? I know our fire chief. Where's the fire chief? You know what a backdraft is. And so when oxygen gets down below 16%, fire will go out and it'll go into a smoldering stage. In that smoldering stage, it's used up that oxygen. That wood now starts going into activated charcoal. And so they, with intent, you can do it. You can dig a hole, and you can put in your wood, catch it on fire, make a nice little bonfire, get it going real good, put some tin on top of it, then put some dirt, and it will use up the oxygen, and it will just smolder in there. And then you can use that as activated charcoal. Now they do it a more highfalutin way and put it in buildings and have more volume. But the activated charcoal draws more than the plain charcoal. But thousands of years they use just plain old charcoal, and that will work fine if you don't have activated charcoal. It can be used for food poisoning. I haven't found anything out there any better than activated charcoal for food poisoning. If you get food poisoning, just take a teaspoon, put it in a glass of water, stir it up, and drink it. Normally food poisoning is gone. If you get it in that incipient state, Chief, what's an incipient state? The beginning. If you catch it in the incipient stage, usually the food poisoning pain is gone within 30 minutes. It's very, very fast. Indigestion, acid reflux, IBS, detox, foot bath, gout. But if you use it internally, do not use it within 2 hours of a medication. Even Allimed, you don't want to use it within 2 hours of. I get a young girl comes in, she's getting activated charcoal for whatever reason. I'm very clear to tell her, if she's in childbearing age, do not use this within 2 hours either side of your birth control pill, or it ain't going to work tonight. It doesn't matter if it's your Lanoxin for your tachycardia or for whatever it is. If you're on a medication and you use activated charcoal within 2 hours either side, it soaks it up. That's why it works so well in the ER for overdoses. We used to use it on the ambulances for overdoses. Charcoal poultices. Charcoal, we talked about flaxseed last night. It's a great tool. I used it for many, many years. You can use oatmeal, grind up flaxseed. But the best thing I found is psyllium seed powder or psyllium husk powder. Either one will work. And you do 1 part charcoal, 1 part psyllium, mix it thoroughly, and then you add 5 to 6 parts, based on the psyllium, water. And once you identify your psyllium, you'll identify whether you want to do 5, 5.5, or 6 parts water. It'll either be too wet or not wet enough. And mix it well You mix it, mix it, mix it. In the bowl, you think he's plumb crazy. There's too much water, and all of a sudden, boom, you got a black ball. Put it between 2 pieces of cellophane, roll it out. You can put it in a bread bag. You can put it in a Ziploc baggie. Roll it out to about 1/4 inch thick. If you've made too much, as we said last night, you can put it in the refrigerator. If it's going to be more than say 5-7 days, put it in the freezer, because it will start molding because of you don't have a preservative in there. If you have an open wound, do not put it straight on an open wound, or it can tattoo that. So put a wet paper towel or a cloth in between. Now, when I was in Venezuela, they don't have paper towels, so they just used a wet sheet, and so you put the charcoal in that wet sheet, put it on there, and it would draw even through that sheet. Infected wounds, stings, bites, inflammation, gout, pain, cancer, eye infections, dental infections. The nice thing about the psyllium is it's kind of rubbery, like a silly putty kind of, but not as much as silly putty. And you can break off a little piece about the size of that digit right there, and you can pick it off, and you can stick it in between your gum and your skin here, and like you would a piece of tobacco, and it will draw that infection out. And then you can pull it out every, say, 2-3 hours and put another piece in there, and it holds together well. What I used to do is I'd take a paper towel with the charcoal poultice that I made out of charcoal and flaxseed, and I'd put it in the paper towel and put it there. But now I don't have to. That psyllium holds it well together. Infections. Antibiotic resistance is among the CDC's top concerns. Upper respiratory infections account for 3/4 of all antibiotics prescribed by office-based physicians. Let me read that again. Upper respiratory infections, account for 3/4, 75% of all antibiotics prescribed by office-based physicians. Antibiotics are often used inappropriately. This is the CDC. More than 10 million courses of antibiotics are prescribed each year for viral conditions that do not benefit from antibiotics. Why do the doctors do it? Because you asked for it. I had a guy call me just recently, all angry. He was one of my firefighters. Went to the ER, his boy was sick. They did not give him any medication. Had a virus. He still wanted a medication. The doctor said, he's got a virus. And didn't. So many times people associate going to the physician to buy medication. If it's antibiotics, different than a virus. The losing battle against deadly bacteria is a public health crisis. Infectious Disease Society of America. I can remember one time I was going down the hallway with our chief of staff, and he said, "Walt, I want to see every order written for an antibiotic for an infection." Well, every order for an antibiotic, obviously there's infection. And I said, "Doc, why do you want to do it?" We had almost 40 physicians who had privileges. And I said, "You're going to make them mad looking over their shoulder. Why are you doing it?" He said, "We are using cannons when a BB gun would work." And he said, "I want to look and see what they're doing." He says, "Someday," now this was years ago, he says, "someday we're going to have superbugs." Are we there? Yeah. Infections, allicin, golden seal root. We talked about golden seal last night. Vitamin C, olive leaf extract is great for infections. Colloidal silver. Nutrition, manage stress. Stress lowers your immune system. Hydrotherapy, charcoal poultice. Garlic. Something called allicin. This is from NIH, National Institute of Health. Allicin is an active ingredient of garlic that has antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, antiprotozoal activity. Allicin exhibits various biological properties like antimicrobial, anti-cancer, antioxidant, immunomodulatory, anti-inflammatory, hypoglycemic, and cardiovascular effects. It also is a good bronchial dilator. Allicin, it's a natural OTC, over the counter. which does not require prescription. MRSA, VRSA, viral infections, bacterial infections. It actually will help lower cholesterol, helps the common cold, dysentery, E. coli, salmonella, heartburn, acid reflux, upset stomach. The allicin, you can make allicin at home. Did you know that? You can make allicin at home. Have you ever heard someone to take your garlic and smash it? When those two chemicals come together, allicin is made. And you have allicin. The challenge is how long is it going to last? Because allicin has a short lifespan unless it's stabilized. And I've only found one place that has really good stabilization. It comes out of England. IBS, IBD, it works great for H. pylori, C. diff, diverticulitis, parasites, flukes, and Pseudomonas. I did find out the other day, Doc, for C. diff, the capsules are working better than the liquid because it helps to flush better. So that's new research they just found out. Immune system. If someone's getting sick, what do you do? What do you do to keep your immune system up? Sugar, sleep, and stress. Sugar will wipe out your immune system. Sleep deprivation will wipe out your immune system. Stress will wipe out your immune system. Vitamin D. Vitamin D has a direct relationship with your immune system. Your lab may say 30 to 99. When I started working in healthcare, they told us don't go over 32, it's dangerous. That's crazy. Dr. Arvo Khanna, who is a neurologist that specializes in brain function, tells his patients, I do not want your vitamin D lower than 60 for cognitive function. Dr. Ted Watkins says to his patients for immune system, for osteoporosis, for bone health, he doesn't want it below 80. There's a doctor down in Atlanta. If you come to her with stage 4 cancer, she's going to push you up to 205. She says, really the only thing to worry about is you could get kidney stones. And she says, I can fix kidney stones a whole lot easier than I can fix stage 4 cancer. And it's only a huge minority that would get the kidney stones. But vitamin D, and it's not how much you take. I had a lady come in, and she had a vitamin D level of 12. That's low. She was taking 5,000 IUs of vitamin D a day. She was Caucasian. The darker pigmentation, the longer it takes. And she worked in landscaping outside all day long. So she works in landscaping all day long, year round. She's got she's white. She's taken 5,000 IUs of vitamin D a day, and her blood level is 12. And people say, "Oh, 5,000 is all you need." No, maybe not. It's not how much you take, it's what's the blood level. Same thing with B12. It's not how much, it's what's the blood level. Someone comes and says, Walt, do I need to take something for my cholesterol? What's your cholesterol? I don't know. Well, I don't know neither. I can't look in the blood. You got to look at the lab work. And so we then went to, I said, okay, let's go to 5,000 twice a day to 10,000. We did that for 3 months. Came back and it was like 17 or 18. So then I called my buddy up in D.C. who does a lot with vitamin D. And I said, what do you think? He goes, do 20,000 IUs twice a day. So we're doing 40,000 a day for 3 months and went to 24. 24. So we're scratching our heads. A week later, a study came out. I saw it that morning. He calls me around 11 o'clock, I think it was, or 11 o'clock, 11:30, somewhere in there. And he said, Walt, did you see that study came out this morning on vitamin D? I said, I did. He said, let's try it. It says if you don't have enough magnesium, it can affect your vitamin D level. Now, the docs at our local hospital are telling me this. The lab guys at the local hospital are telling me this, is that don't trust your lab which is in a series that has your magnesium that's from the blood serum. Because 1.5% to 2% of your magnesium is in the blood serum. The majority of your magnesium, they're telling me, is in the RBC, in the red blood cells, and it's not directly proportionate. You can easily have more magnesium in the serum, and that gives you a false of what really your magnesium is. So you want an RBC, a red blood cell, of your magnesium to get a better, accurate or more accurate amount of what your magnesium is. So when we did the magnesium, she jumped to 97. Now, we also know that K2 is important for vitamin D absorption. Also, vitamin C is important for vitamin D absorption. Good nutrition, exercise, universal precautions. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Garlic, allicin, podiarco. We talked about podiarco last night. Great for the immune system. Red clover, echinacea, golden seal, elderberry. Someone was talking about elderberry this evening. Vitamin C. Vitamin C is a huge one out there that many people forget about. Olive leaf extract, and a huge favorite of mine, oil of oregano. I carry oil of oregano in my turnout coat. I carry it in my wildland backpack. I've got it in the car. I've got it at the office. I've got it on my side of the bed. Mary Lou's got it on her side of the bed. Again, Chief, what's the incipient stage? At the very beginning. When you feel that early onset, you feel it right here. You feel it right here. You feel like you're catching something. You know what that feels like. Immediately take the oil of oregano. It's phenomenal how well that works. Boils. Look at a blood purifier, chaparral, my favorite for that, burdock, red clover, podiarco. I would also use podiarco there. You can put a charcoal poultice on it. If you want the boil to come to a head faster, put some tea tree oil on it, and it will bring that boil to a head faster so we can get that pain over with. Then put that charcoal poultice on it. You do not have to put a barrier if the skin is not open yet, but once that skin is open, you want a wet paper towel between the charcoal and the bowl, or you can tattoo that. Allicin, nutrition, water is very important. Bowls, skin issues, many times are blood issues. Clean that blood out. That's what the chaparral, burdock, red clover, and the water is doing. Clean that blood out. You can have a boil from a sebaceous cyst that bursts. I had a sebaceous cyst that was here for years. And I was going around the nurse's station one time, and I just cut the corner too quick. Boom, I hit it, and it's painful. It broke it. It got infected, turned into a boil. I treated it as a boil, and that sebaceous cyst is gone. Don't bother me anymore. And I can remember as a boy, in elementary school, getting a boil on this shoulder. And I remember my dad holding me down so my mom could lance it and get that out. Oh, it was so painful. But with the charcoal poultice, you put that poultice on there, and within 15 minutes, the pain is gone. Now, when the pain comes back, that's time to change your poultice again. And that thing's nasty. Throw it away. You don't want to use it over and over. Insomnia. Insomnia is probably the hardest thing I'm working with right now. Insomnia is difficult. That and toenail fungus. Toenail fungus can be difficult. But insomnia is difficult. There's a number of things that you want to look at. Is the room clean? Is the room cool? You don't want a hot room. If you've got my problem is I'm thinking. There's so many things I didn't get done today that I'm thinking about I didn't get done, and so much I got to do tomorrow, and how am I going to get what I didn't get done today and what I need to do tomorrow? And y'all ever that way? And so what you can do is quit thinking about it. Write down on a piece of paper and let that paper remember it all night long. And if you think of something you need to do tomorrow, write it down. And then now I use my phone. And so I'm almost asleep now. I'll remember something, and Mary Lou goes, "Who are you texting this time?" And I said, "Oh, me. I'm sending myself a message. I got to do this tomorrow." And then I'll have to worry about it, because the next day, there it is, I can remember it. But there's something that Harvard has identified since COVID that they've written on. National Geographic actually did some studying on it also, sleep deprivation since COVID. And they found something similar there. During COVID, people stayed home, worked from home. Some people still are working from home. And they turned their bedroom into the office, the dining room, the entertainment room, the library, I don't remember if I said dining room or not, but it was like the multi-purpose room. And Harvard said if you walk into the bathroom, you don't have to wonder what you're in there for. Do you decide I'm going to eat something? No. But Harvard and National Geographic said people have now confused the bedroom for you wake up in the night. Well, this is the entertainment room. Let's watch some TV. Or let's watch my cell phone. Or let's read a book. Or let's go get some food. And it said the bedroom should only be used for 3 things: sleeping, changing your clothes, and relations between spouse. That's it. Everything else does not belong in the bedroom because the brain is getting confused. Go to the dining room. Sit at the table as a family. Boy, we're losing that today. So that's important. But let's see, what could we do for insomnia? Valerian, hops, skullcap, passion flower. There's a product out there called Slumber. The hardest folks I ever had to get to fall asleep was after 9/11. Patients out of New York City and Washington, D.C., they just couldn't sleep. So I called a friend of mine who's actually, how many of y'all know Dave Westbrook? How many know Laura? Laura's daddy is who I called. Dr. Strachan, Dr. Walter Strachan, a tremendous guy. And I called Dr. Strachan and I said, what can I do? He said, 2 tablespoons of valerian powdered, 2 tablespoons of skullcap powdered, and 2 tablespoons of hops powder. Put it in 2 cups of water and make an infusion. He said, it always works. Woman's, their husband dies, they're hysterical. It always works. Good. So that night at 8 o'clock, we gave everybody that was from New York City and Washington, D.C., the tea. It didn't work. So I called Strachan the next morning. I said, Strachan, it didn't work. He goes, wow, I've not had that happen. And if you knew Strachan, he was a very compassionate man. I mean, he really cared for people. And he says, okay, let's do it at 8 o'clock full dose, 6 o'clock full dose. We did it that night. It didn't work. Called him the next morning. I said, Strachan, it didn't work. He said, Walt, these people are really fractured. He said, keep backing it up 2 hours. So that night we did 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock. It didn't work. The next night we did 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and it worked. The next 6 months, and every night, every time we got a new patient, we would try the 8, then the 6, 8, then the 4, 6, 8. Then it took everybody a 2, 4, 6, 8 to get those people to sleep. And for about 6 months, right at 6 months, that's what we had to do. And then finally, the stress was not as much. Only once have I had to do it that much, and it was a lady who had some surgery over in Winston-Salem, and things went wrong in the surgery, which affected her brain, and we had to do a 2, 4, 6, 8. But it works very well. Magnesium works quite well. I would try that one to bowel tolerance before going to bed. How many of y'all seen the product called Calm? There used to be one, Calm and Relax, I think. They took it off the market. Excellent product. I think it had chamomile and a couple other things. It was really good, but they quit making it. Magnesium oil. I use magnesium oil. I'll rub it on the bottom of my feet. And I learned that from a fella over in Spokane. A doctor over there told me. He says, Walt, just put some magnesium oil on the bottom of your feet, and it works. You fall asleep. Chamomile, light to no supper. See, when you eat, within 3 to 4 hours of laying down, it's reported that the food can putrefy and ferment. Then that goes into the blood, and can that affect your sleeping? Absolutely. Can it affect your dreams? Have you ever ate something that you shouldn't have, and you have bad dreams at night? Mary Lou and I have been married probably, a couple years, and we got into the habit of eating Breyer's ice cream while I was watching the 11 o'clock news. Now, this is back years ago before I realized any of this. And we noticed that the nights that we ate the Breyers ice cream, y'all have Breyers here? Okay. Texas, they use something different. Bluebell or something like that. They say it's better than Breyers. What is it? What is it? Y'all have that? Okay. I never ate that one. I'd quit eating ice cream by then when I saw it. But anyway, so we got to just ciphering and saying, well, you know, the nights that we eat the ice cream, we don't sleep good. So let's cut out eating the ice cream and see what happens. Well, we cut out eating the ice cream late like that, and it quit bothering us. It's better not to eat supper, but if you do, eat something light, like a V8 juice or maybe some soup. Tryptophan is good. Tryptophan, you can buy tryptophan. That turns into serotonin when you have sunshine coming through the eyes. Its pineal gland converts the tryptophan into serotonin. And then at night, if you don't eat a big supper and if you go to bed on time, that pineal gland converts the serotonin into melatonin. B-complex can help. Don't do it right before bedtime, but it can calm you down if you're having problems calming down. Sunshine is good. There's a new one that I'm using that Mary Lou's using on me, shall I say. There's a couple new ones. One is to calm my brain down. I mean, Mary Lou will fall asleep on the car on the way. I mean, as soon as she gets in the car, she's gone. She gets home, it wakes her up driving up the driveway, and she gets, sometimes I don't think she hits the pedal before she's asleep. I mean, she's gone. But then she'll wake up and I'm moving around. I can't go to sleep because I'm thinking. And even if I write it down, sometimes I'm still thinking. And she says, you need an ashwagandha? And who's ever used ashwagandha? It doesn't make you sleepy, but it just kind of turns your brain off so you can kind of relax a little bit. Ashwagandha works well. There's a product called Tranquil Sleep. Tranquil Sleep. It has L-theanine. L-theanine works really well for some people. It has 5-HTP, which 5-HTP came out when we weren't allowed to sell tryptophan in the early 2000s. FDA wouldn't allow us to sell tryptophan, and so we used 5-HTP. Then they said, okay, you can use tryptophan, and so we don't sell as much 5-HTP anymore. But 5-HTP helped, and it has some melatonin. Melatonin by itself, I find, actually can make problems worse. We see increased dream activity. We see more nightmares. Some people it works fine for, but a lot of people it doesn't work. But along with this formula, it seems to do a pretty good job. Here's the problem with insomnia. One is finding one that will work. The second one, it's like deodorant. Have you ever seen someone, or have you ever had the problem where you use a deodorant and it works for a while and then it quits working, you got to go to a different deodorant? The same thing's true here. It may work for a while, then it quits working. Now you got to start researching what can help you go to sleep. And so insomnia is a big issue. We didn't have a problem falling asleep on the farm, did we? No, we didn't. We worked hard. Not that we don't work hard today mentally, but we were just physically plumb wore out. Stress is a big issue. You need to make sure you have your rest, your nutrition, your water, your exercise. Trust in God. That's huge. That's powerful. Flaxseed has tryptophan. KAVA. I like KAVA because KAVA, I believe people should work. And so if they're able to work, and these guys such as chamomile, hop, skullcap, valerian, those guys can make you sleepy. And so they're great to work in the evenings, but during the daytime, KAVA works pretty good. And also I've used the, I'll come back to it in just a sec. And so the KAVA doesn't make you sleepy. B-complex, I remember I was at Florida Hospital back in the late 70s, in 1977, and there was an old doc there. He says, Walt, if you want to help your patients with stress, he said, the best thing I ever found was B-complex. And it does. It works great. And I remember when I was taking nutrition classes from T. Colin Campbell, I asked Dr. Campbell, remember Campbell in Forks Over Knives? And I asked him, I said, Dr. Campbell, I said, this is the outcomes I get with B-complex 100, one each meal. And Campbell likes getting nutrition from food, and I do too. But I said, how do I get that much from food? He said, Walt, you can't. You can't get B-complex, and then 100 is either milligrams or micrograms, whichever the B is, like B2, B3, B6 are milligrams, and B12 is micrograms. And so they're all 100, except the folic acid is a little higher. It's either going to be 200 or 400, depending on which one you use. And he said, Walt, you're going to have to supplement to get that outcome. So you remember Dr. Campbell? And I told one person the backstory on Dr. Campbell today. And he told us this in class. How many of y'all watched Forks Over Knives? And I stopped to tell you this story because it's very important for parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. Campbell went into the study. He came off a dairy farm, beef cattle, and he had a hypothesis that we needed more meat and dairy in our diet. And so he went into the China study to prove that. And as he went into the study, he was finding 180 degrees difference. He was finding just the opposite, that actually meat and dairy actually shortens life. And not eating meat and dairy increases life. He found that eating meat and dairy causes health problems like dairy, he said he found was the most significant chemical carcinogen ever discovered. Now, how's that sound for a boy growing up on a dairy farm? It blew me away. He found that dairy increases a child's risk of type 1 diabetes by 1,100%. Found all kinds of issues with dairy and the pathogens that were in meat causing diseases. So what's he do? Who took statistics in school? I learned in statistics at University of Tennessee how to make numbers what you wanted. Unfortunately, you have to not just look at numbers, you got to look and see how they came up with those numbers. And Campbell told us in class, what do? Do I play with the numbers? And the reason I'm telling you this story is because we have a responsibility as parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles to help the next generations to come. His father would tell him on the farm, and in his ears, and he could hear his father saying, Colin, never lie. Colin, never lie. So he published it. And that, therefore, we have the China study as we know it today. And therefore, we have the term plant-based. T. Colin Campbell coined that term, plant-based. And because he was honest. And he didn't play with the numbers. Yes, he lost his job from Cornell University over that. But it was a huge decision that he made. It was a good decision. So, do we need to teach our grandkids and our kids and our nieces and nephews never lie? Or other things like that? Maybe someday they may be in the position of T. Colin Campbell, and based on what you told them, they may make the same kind of decisions, if time lasts that long. Lithium orotate is phenomenal. I mean, it is huge for helping with stress. Trace minerals. You've got fats, proteins, carbohydrates. You've got vitamins, which are a catalyst that kicks on fats, proteins, and complex carbohydrates, or carbohydrates. And then you've got another one over here, which is minerals, which is a catalyst that kicks on vitamins, which kicks on fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. But the problem is we don't have mineralization today. We don't have it in our soil because of erosion. We don't have it in our food because of processing. We don't have it in our because of processing the food. We don't have it in the food because of hybrid seeds. University of North Carolina, Department of Agriculture, found that hybrid seeds uptake approximately 40% of the chemicals or the nutrients out of the soil that heirloom take out. Let me say that again. Hybrid seeds Let's say a good old tomato. Where's the lady with the tomato? There we go. A hybrid tomato takes up 40% of the nutrients out of the ground that the heirloom tomato can pull out of the ground. Isn't that amazing? And so we're not getting those minerals. And so minerals have to be at 8 cylinders to turn on vitamins at 8 cylinders, to turn on fats, proteins, and carbohydrates at 8 cylinders. So taking extra minerals can be very important. That's why, who's heard of Barbara O'Neill? She's all over the place. Barbara talks about Celtic salt. It has minerals. Or you can just use liquid trace minerals to get that to happen. Very important for stress because it improves the nutrition. Magnesium is important for stress because when you're stressed, as adrenaline goes up, your body dumps magnesium to protect the cells from the harmful effects of the adrenaline. Classical music calms people down. It helps with stress. Bleeding. In addition to direct pressure and elevation, cayenne pepper. I told you the story last night of the guy who came in just this week. He had cut his hand really bad. Cayenne pepper is great for bleeding. Comfrey root or leaf, European goldenrod, shave grass. There's a number of things that you can use for bleeding, but cayenne pepper is just a real easy one to use, very effective. Helichrysum. Who knows what helichrysum is? Helichrysum, pour that on. It's a little expensive, but it will stop bleeding. Yeah. Pardon? Yarrow? Yes, yarrow can be beneficial for that, yes. Yep. Red raspberry, shepherd's purse. Shepherd's purse is phenomenal for the woman with an issue of blood. I had a girl call me. I was at church. I was sitting back in the back corner one Sabbath morning. I got a phone call from one of my firefighters. So I waited until church was over. I went out and called her, and I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "I feel like the lady with an issue of blood." She said, "I've been bleeding for 30 days. And she said, it's terrible. I have no energy." I said, "Well, I'll be here. It'll take me about 45 minutes to get to office. 45 minutes or an hour," I told her. I don't remember, somewhere in there. And I said, "Meet me at the office." So I went to the office, and I gave her some shepherd's purse. She called me the next day and told me it was over. I had a lady a couple months ago call me. This lady was having to sit on towels and had been that way for over 3 months. And she says, "What can I do?" And so she had started taking some red raspberry. It had some benefit, but it still was enough still to be sitting on towels. And so we did shepherd's purse. Shepherd's purse usually has always worked in just one day. This lady, it took her 3 days, but it stopped the bleeding. As a tea, yes ma'am. 1/4 of a cup to a quart of water as an infusion. Ladies' mantle, crane's bill. There's a number of things you can use for stop bleeding. A nosebleed, raise the arm above the head. Cayenne dissolved in water, squirt it up in the nose. Extract of witch hazel. They taught us in school to take ice and crush it and stick the ice between the upper gum and the lip here, and that would cause vasoconstriction. Bleeding ulcers. Again, you can do start with 1/4 of a teaspoon 3 times a day. That's internally. Work up to 1 teaspoon 3 times a day. When I had ulcerative colitis, I had no intact tissue in the colon, according to the gastroenterologist. He told me it looked like it had been drugged down I-40, the colon. He said it looks like hamburger meat. And I had a lot of bleeding. When I left him and went to a fellow which was able to help me, I took 2 capsules of cayenne pepper, PRN, and it would stop the bleeding. When it would come back, I'd take another 2 capsules, PRN. Burns. Different types of burns: thermal, heat burns, cold temperature burns, electrical burns, chemical burns, radiation burns, friction burns. I won't go into the different degrees. Place under cool running water for about 10 to 15 minutes or until the pain stops. Yeah, do it as long as you can. They taught us in school that burns will continue penetrating for as much as 12 hours. And so you want to cool that area off very well. If you can't place underwater, use a cool compress, but do not place ice directly on the burn. That can cause tissue damage. Lavender oil is the best thing I have found. Lavender oil, pour lavender oil on that burn is amazing. 2 months ago, I saw Mary Lou, I saw her hand, and I said, "What happened to your hand?" She said, "Oh, I burned it in the oven." I said, "Because that lavender, it won't look like that." I said, "Why didn't you put lavender on it?" She says, "I was too busy." You know how Mary Lou is. She don't stop for nothing. And she says, "I was too busy." Well, then she dealt with the pain and dealt with that, what it looked like. Lavender is amazing. Aloe vera and grated potato. I didn't know about lavender at this time. I was working, and this guy comes in, and his he was a maintenance fellow, and there was a furnace that had quit working, and so as precautionary, he went and turned off the valve at the big propane tank outside. He went over to the furnace room in this big building and turned on the light, or turned the switch on, but the light didn't come on. So he walks over to the furnace, pulls out his Bic lighter, leans down, click. The valve, not only did the light switch not work, but the valve on the propane tank did not work, and it exploded. It burnt him, burnt all of this area here, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, burnt his hair off, burnt his face, and then he had flame marks up his face, kind of like a 1950 Chevy with flames painted on it. And so he comes in. I had him get on the exam table, and the first thing I did is what? Pray. Then I took aloe vera gel, and that's what I had, and I kept pouring aloe vera gel, a whole quart, in his face, sucked up the whole quart of the aloe vera gel, just like a sponge. And then I had the ladies up in dietary to grade potatoes. Now, my grandma taught me to grade potatoes like I did last night for burns. And so we graded the potatoes, and eventually they were grading it, and then they went to a Cuisinart to do it because we were using so much. And once I used up the aloe vera, I put potatoes. Well, I put aloe vera, a piece of aloe vera on each eye, and then I put potatoes on it. Then I poured a little aloe vera in that until the potatoes got hot. Then I took them off. You know, have any of y'all ever used vinegar for sunburn? Yeah. You take a bowl. It's different than internally where you're dealing with the mucosa getting damaged. But externally, like last night we talked about vinegar externally for what? A bruise, yes. And, well, you can use it for like a sunburn. And so you take your washcloth and you soak it down in that vinegar and you apply it to the area until the washcloth comes hot. Take it off, put it in the vinegar, and you keep doing it until the vinegar gets hot. Take the bowl of vinegar, stick it in the freezer, get another bowl of vinegar, and keep wherever you're burnt, keep doing that until the washcloth does not get hot. Then you put aloe vera on it. And then 30 minutes, an hour later, you start cooking again. Just keep repeating it, and it will keep repeating it, and it keeps pulling the heat out. Well, so what we're doing is the potatoes are pulling the heat out, and as the potatoes get hot, we would take it off, use aloe vera again, then we put potatoes on it and aloe vera, and we just kept doing that back and forth for 5 hours. After 5 hours, his wife had come in. We taught her what we were doing. She took him home, and she kept the process. He had no scarring. Isn't that cool? Yes, sir.
I heard you talk about this when I was working one time on a car. I got a steam burn on my hand, on my arm. It was really painful. Ice and cold didn't do anything for it. And I finally figured out something that worked. I took wheat germ oil, and I put the wheat germ oil on it, and it instantly took away the pain.
Isn't that interesting?
And the burn healed almost 2 days later.
Wow. So he used wheat germ oil. That's good to know. See, we learn from each other. There's so many things. Yes, sir.
The lavender oil that you put on, you put that on 100% strength?
Yes, 100%. It's called NEAT, N-E-T, 100%. Yes, sir. Epsom salt, burdock root, comfrey, colloidal silver. What does that remind you of? Who's worked in healthcare? What's that colloidal silver remind you of? What? What? But what in healthcare did we use? What? Silvadene. Remember Silvadene? Pardon? Optifoam? Oh, okay. Okay. When I worked there, it was Silvadene. And it's colloidal silver in there, or silver in it. Yeah, it works very well. Calendula, chickweed, bee propolis, golden seal, and marshmallow root. That's not marshmallows, marshmallow root. I've covered the burn with a sterile dressing. Why is that? A burn is very prone to infection. Use something for pain, wild lettuce, California poppy, Jamaican dogwood. What was the other one we talked about last night? Skullcap. Watch for signs of infections. Do not put ice on it. Be careful with ointments. Ointments can hold the pain in, the heat in. And why don't we want to break the blisters? Infection and pain. It's going to hurt more if the blisters are broke. But I'm most concerned about infection. Okay. Oral care. Mouth sores. Pine sap works good. Aloe vera, golden seal, myrrh gum powder, bee propolis, activated charcoal, salt. Salt works good. But again, as we talked about earlier, mouth sores, always investigate if there's possible digestive problems that you've got to address, because they could be secondary to the digestive issues. Gum disease. Lady comes in, and I talked about it last night. The lady, about her teeth were watering, and they wanted to charge her $3,000. We used the golden seal and the myrrh gum powder. Pine sap, we use that. Bee propolis, black walnut. What else do we think of black walnut for? Parasites. Barberry, calendula, comfrey. Toothaches. Now, most folks are aware of clove oil. Who's ever used clove oil for toothache? Yeah, it works very well. Charcoal poultice or tablet. Golden seal, myrrh gum powder, horsetail. Pine sap, calendula, chamomile, ginger, caraway. Oil. My dentist, who's a biological dentist, he recommends oil pulling. Who's ever heard of oil pulling? That works quite well. Salt water can work well too. Salt water changes the chemistry there and helps with the pain. Also for toothaches, I have used, who's ever used Curamin by Terry Naturally? Curamin is an excellent tool for pain. If it doesn't work, you can get your money back. It's pretty good. It's called Curamin. It's a brand name. It has curcumin in it, but the brand name is Curamin. It's very strong. It's probably the best one I found. And the cool thing is, a lot of folks say that you have to put black pepper with curcumin to make it work. They have found out how to take turmeric extract and add to the turmeric powder, and it does the same chemistry as adding black pepper, and you don't have to have the black pepper. Strep throat. Best thing I have found is take it. We talked about it last night. Usually strep throat is gone within 24 hours, longest 48 hours, and that's 1 teaspoon of golden seal to a cup of water. Gargle for 2 minutes every 2 hours. Swallow. Works extremely well for strep throat. Colloidal silver is good, and allicin's good. Sore throat. My favorite is for sore throat, and I don't have it on here, is slippery elm. Slippery elm is just phenomenal. Just put the slippery elm in your water bottle, shake it up, and every time you take a sip, it's going to coat that throat. You can put it in a glass of water, however you want to do it. That works good. Lemon and honey, aloe vera, golden seal, propolis, salt water, colloidal silver, and you can do hydrotherapy, where you put an ice cold handkerchief around, and then put a wool around, and that will help with sore throat. Yes, sir.
2 years ago, dentist told me I was going to have implants.
Yes.
We're going to go through $4,000. And my wife has a friend that's named Colin Never Lie, and he said you should take French green clay, swallow and drink it. Now it's a young problem. I haven't had one ache in my two years. I haven't gone back. I brush my teeth with French green clay.
How much did you swallow? Half a teaspoon in water? How every day? Excellent. French green clay. And he had an infection that they were going to have to pull the tooth and put implants in. Isn't that cool? That's great to know. Thank you. Ear infections. The best thing I have found, as I talked about last night, is the golden seal, where you take a teaspoon and you fill it full, about 70% of olive oil, put about a half a capsule of golden seal in there, stir it for an infant, 2 drops, rub it in like a dog's ear, put the hot things in there, and then for a child or adult, put 3 drops in every waking 2 hours, and it works quite well. Garlic oil, allicin, heat. A light bulb. You can take a light bulb and hold it off the ear about 2 inches, and that can be beneficial. Candling, ear candling can work. My oldest son, he kept getting ear infections, and they were going to put tubes in his ears. And my mom sent me ear candles. We did not burn things in patients' ears. And so I just thought that was a little crazy. But you know how moms can be. They can nag. And she would nag. And finally I thought, I got to get mom off my back. So the audiologist worked for me. I knew the pediatrician. I said, guys, just tell me no. So I can be honest with mom and say, y'all said it was a bad idea. I'm not going to do it. And then they go, yeah, we've heard about that. Let's do that. So here's how crazy I was. Who's done ear candling? Is that safe to do at home? Guess where I went? To the pediatrician's office. Make sure this is done right, under observation. Crazy. And didn't have to put tubes in his ears. Now, Chief, this would have been terrible awful if I had done this. My wife woke up one morning, she says, my ears bother me, can you do an ear candle on me? And we're laying in bed. She fell asleep, I fell asleep, and it was burning down on my finger. Fortunately, it didn't set the bed on fire. That wouldn't have gone over well. Fire chief burns house down, his own house. But ear candling can work. Eye care. The best thing I have found for a scratch in the eye is vitamin E oil. It's phenomenal on a scratch on the eye. Who's ever heard of putting flaxseed? Yeah. Actually, physicians are the one. I had a dentist tell me about it, and I had an optometrist tell me about using flaxseed. But I tell you, the vitamin E, I've done both, and the vitamin E oil works a whole lot better. The flaxseed? Oh, you can just take a vitamin E oil capsule, puncture it, and then squirt it in the eye, or in the eye. Or if you have vitamin E oil, you can put it there. Now, this is really cool. You want cool? This is cool. This happened in Germany. They had a patient who was blind in one eye. Pupil was plumb blown. So they bring him into the hospital every day, and they measure up X amount of honey and put it in the eye. At 3 months, he could see. At 6 months, he had excellent vision, and the typical us could not tell any disparity between the eyes. It looked like total symmetry. They said it took 9 months, and they kept doing it, just kept doing it, until the optometrist could not even tell a difference in the eyes. It took 9 months, and he had vision. Yes? For cataracts, we can do what the Asians have done for many years. China, Malaysia, Indonesia. I know those countries did it. I don't know about Japan, if Japan did it or not. But you can put a drop of, make sure there's no tear in the eye. But you put 1 drop of lemon juice in the morning, it burns. 1 drop of honey in the evening. And I've seen cataracts totally go away by doing that. And they've done it in that culture for who knows how many years. They're a whole lot older nation-wise than we are. We're just young folks. For cataracts, Can-C, C-A-N-C. It's by Wise Choice. It's a physician in California that came up with it. It's in acetylcarnosine. And veterinarians use it on dogs. And it actually works faster on dogs than it works on humans. But it works on humans also. I've seen cataracts leave with that also. 2 drops twice a day. And that works well. It also works for glaucoma. It works for, also works for floaters. And what he's doing there is he found that the eye would, the sewer system in the eye would get clogged up. And it would open, just as the honey and the lemon juice, the Can-C opens that up, and that allows the circulation and all to work better, the sewer system process of the eye, and that helps with the pressure. Also, it helps with cleaning the cataract off. Let's see here. Did I bring it with me? Nope, I didn't bring it with me. It must be in my computer bag. It's just a little, you just put 2 drops in the eye in the morning, 2 drops at night. 2 drops twice a day.
My son is using something called Lumen Pro. I wonder if that's similar.
I don't know.
It's not all of our dogs. We teach it like a Chihuahua. She's super healthy. She's been on vomiting.
For Chihuahua, I'd probably do 1 drop twice a day. Yes.
He started the Can-C and talked to my husband today and said she's already doing there.
With the Can-C? Oh, Lumen Pro. Okay, yes. Wow. But she's already having improvement. Excellent. Excellent. Yes. C-A-N dash the letter C. You can get it at your local health food store. You can get it online. Call us, whatever. Yes, ma'am. Any kind of honey that's pure honey. Yes, ma'am. I would think it would, yes. Yes. Yes, sir.
Do you recommend anything for an object like a piece of metal or from a grinding wheel or something like that as something to help pull that out if you're not able to go to a physician to have it removed?
I am very cautious on eyes. You only got 2 of them. The first thing I would do is patch both eyes. Because if you patch this eye and this eye keeps looking around, this eye's going to track wherever that other eye is. Just like if we get an object in an eye, we're going to put a paper cup, we're going to stabilize that, and we're going to put a patch on this eye because we don't want that eye tracking. I do know that magnets are used in medical field, but I wouldn't do anything on that because that's serious. I would find medical attention on that. Anyone else there? All right. Infections, causes, it can be viruses, bacteria, fungi, or a fungus, allergies, other irritants. Contact lenses can have buildup of bacteria. There's a whole list of things here. Shingles, limes, tuberculosis, just a lot of issues. Let's go here. Treatment: charcoal poultice, flaxseed poultice, golden seal wash. That's my favorite for an eye infection, is a golden seal wash. I'll make it like I talked about last night. You don't need to make a whole lot. Just take like an eighth of a teaspoon of golden seal, an ounce of water, make an infusion, let it sit for 30 minutes, pour it through a coffee filter, and because you don't want those granules in there, and put it in the eye, and do that about every 2 hours. And that works extremely well for an eye infection. Boric acid, chamomile, honey. Honey is another great one. I had a girl next door come in one day, and I was real busy, didn't have time to make the wash, and she had an eye infection. I just put some honey in there, and it worked very well. Yes? Just kind of pour some honey in there. Yeah. Yeah, I put a couple drops of honey. Pardon? Yes. Yeah, so what I'll do is what I did to her is I just brought the honey and I took a butter knife in there and I just kind of dropped a little off in the eye. Yeah, it's not going to hurt it. Jasmine flower, allicin. Allicin is good. Some people are interested. I've got two buddies that are optometrists and they wanted to check Allimed. Let's try it in the eye because they said it was safe in the eye. So what do? One optometrist goes to the other optometrist. There were two different. Goes to his office, sits in the chair. One optometrist drops it in the other optometrist's eye, uses the slit lamp to see if, to watch it. There was no problem with the eye at all. Didn't hurt the eyeball at all. And he put a whole drop in there. Pink eye. When I was a boy, and if we got cattle in that had pink eye, Dad would take salt and catch a cow not looking and toss salt in the eye. Anybody ever heard of that? Yes. Well, I asked a vet one time about that. He says, yes, farmers still do that today. It's not the best for the cow's eyes, but we don't do that to people. Saline solution. How do you make saline solution? Saline solution is a pint of water and 1 teaspoon of salt, and that will make you normal saline. Use distilled water and use the salt, and you will have normal saline. You can do that. Charcoal poultice, raw human cow or goat milk. When I go to other countries, and even in Appalachia, the old Appalachian women tell the younger girls when I go to the islands or if I go to other countries like Africa, the women will squirt breast milk at least once a day, if not twice, into the baby's eyes to prevent infection for usually 3 months. Some have told me they do it as much as 6 months. It helps to keep infection down. Do they do that in Japan? No? Okay. But that will get rid of pink eye. My favorite on pink eye is the golden seal wash. It will plumb wipe out pink eye. Periwinkle, it has to be the white periwinkle. Lemon in the morning, honey at night, that will also work. A charcoal poultice can be beneficial for pink eye. Eye infections. Prevention, washing hands. Don't share bedding, towels, pillows, cosmetics, eyeliners, mascara, or eye shadow. I had an optometrist that was retired and came to work with us for about 2 years one time. And if anyone came in with an eye infection, he would tell them, don't wear any eye mascara or anything until you get that over with. Dispense of any contacts or eye makeup that may have been exposed to the infection. Don't wear contacts or eye makeup until the infection is cleared from the eye completely. Avoid swimming in chlorine when you have an eye infection. Pain. Water. Who's read Batman Jotty. Your Body's Many Cries for Water. If you want a good book on hydration, that's a good book to take a look at. And Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And Dr. Batman Jotty says that dehydration magnifies pain. Wild lettuce we talked about, California poppy, Jamaican dogwood, also the skullcap. Turmeric, curcumin, works very well. Did you know that exercise helps with pain? Increases circulation. Perfect health is perfect circulation. Who's ever done an ice massage? Yes, so let's say you've got a bad shoulder. Take you a cup of yes.
My wife has a friend who, when she was, speak of the, I can't remember what it was, but she couldn't, she said, you'll never be able to bend fully over again. And she came over and did an ice massage on her. She went right down to her toes and never had a problem again.
So his wife had a friend. They had told her she'd never bend over again. She does the ice massage. She could touch her toes. What you do is take you a cup of water, fill it full of ice, full of water, put it in the freezer, freeze it, and then put some water on it because it's going to be sticky. A styrofoam cup. I like the styrofoam. It rips better. I like the styrofoam better. And you can rip it off. Or paper, you can rip the paper around. And then you use that part that's still the cup, and you do I'm left-handed, circular motion, pretty decent, fast. And then it's going to start to burn and sting and pain, and then it gets numb. When it gets numb, stop. About 20 minutes is what you did. Okay, 20 minutes. And it works well. You've got knee pain, shoulder pain, back pain. Physical therapists use it. Hydrotherapy, hot and cold, white willow, DMSO, cayenne pepper, and pine sap. Angina. Angina is a condition where you don't have enough blood flow going to the heart. You have 3 types of muscles in the body. The heart is a separate type of muscle of its own, and it screams real loud when it doesn't get adequate blood flow. And that's to stop you so you don't have a heart attack, hopefully. And so cayenne pepper, sublingual, I have people tell me it works better than nitroglycerin. It's a vasodilator. Magnesium oil and arnica. Now, I do not know this. I haven't seen any research. But the caution I would have, if you're using cayenne pepper as a vasodilator, like you would nitroglycerin, you know that if a man is on Viagra and he takes nitroglycerin, he may have too much volume for the amount of fluid he has, and the pump won't pump it. It's like cavitation. And he's going to die. I don't care what you do, unless you give him more fluids. And so whether cayenne pepper will do that, I don't know. So ask, has he taken Viagra? If you're encouraging a man to take cayenne pepper for angina. If he's taken Viagra or like Viagra, be cautious there. Magnesium oil. You can take magnesium oil and rub the heart. And it works very good for angina. It works very good for just congestive heart failure. It works very, very fast. Transdermally, it's a lot faster than taking it PO by mouth. Arnica can be used. Do you know this guy? He lives where I live. Does he live where you live? Digestive system. Food poisoning, we talked about activated charcoal. Stomach ache, activated charcoal can help. Peppermint tea or peppermint essential oil. How much did we say yesterday? 1 drop of peppermint essential oil is equal to how many cups of peppermint tea? 28. Ginger. Ginger's a great one. Aloe vera is a good one. Who's used lobelia? In the mountains, we call it lobelia. Lobelia is an antispasmodic. Take too much, it's going to work like Ipecac. Remember syrup of Ipecac when we were kids? You're going to throw up if you take too much. If you're doing a gallbladder cleanse and you want to dilate that bile duct or a gallbladder liver cleanse, and you don't want a gallstone to get caught, use lobelia. It dilates it and it helps prevent it from getting stuck. Yellow root is in the same family as golden seal. So golden seal would also work well. Again, you want to find the cause. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, stop all dairy, stop all caffeine, stop all meat, stop all wheat and gluten, and manage stress. That's the first thing you do. Exercise is important. Eat slowly, masticate the food, aloe vera, trace minerals. The colon formula, here's the colon formula. We talked about it last night. We'll do it one more time. Psyllium seed whole, 2 parts. Slippery elm, 1 part. Marshmallow root, a 1/2 a part. Peppermint, a 1/4 of a part. Spearmint, a 1/4 of a part. Make a combination and take 2 tablespoons before each meal, 30 minutes before each meal. Excellent, excellent for any kind of IBS, gastritis, any of those issues. It helps to heal that digestive tissue. Carob powder, 1 teaspoon twice a day. You can put it in water or you can put it in apple sauce. And thoroughly chew one's food. If it's really bad, don't do anything raw. Ulcerative colitis, follow the IBS protocol. If bleeding, cayenne pepper or white oak bark. The potato soup, you do this for 21 days. Potatoes, carrots, celery, and onions. The phytochemicals in there are amazing in healing the colon. I also use this soup for gastritis, for Crohn's, and then after the 21 days, fruits, vegetables, that's it. Well, you can do some grains, but they can't be grains that are gluten. And only cooked, no raw, except a banana. You can eat a raw banana. And you do this, fruits, vegetables, grains that are not gluten, and you do that until the UC, ulcerative colitis, is healed. Continue doing nothing raw. Even fruit juice, you don't want raw. Because you've got irritated skin, you don't want raw. And so if you do juice, you want to, like, who's ever put up tomato juice? You're going to heat it first, right? And so if you want to do juicing, you want to heat it up first, and then you can do the juice. But it works extremely good for ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, gastritis. It's phenomenal. H. pylori, the allicin probiotic, works very well. Do it for 45 days. Constipation. On constipation, there's several keys. The first key is adequate hydration. Who's ever grown a garden? If it hadn't rained in 2 months, is the ground hard? If you're dehydrated, the fecal material is going to be drier. You want plenty of fiber. You want to exercise. Now, I have people who have plenty of hydration, plenty of exercise, plenty of fiber, and when they add this one item, many times peristalsis starts. And a guy by the name of John Harvey Kellogg identified this. Eat breakfast, dinner, supper at the same time every day. Remember when we were kids and we would go to our grandmother's house? Breakfast was at a certain time. Dinner was at a certain time. Supper was at a certain time. If you came in and it wasn't that time, you didn't eat until the next meal. You tried to get something out of the kitchen, she'd slap your hand or slap your head, and she'd say, "Don't touch that, it's going to spoil your meal." Remember those days? We had tough grandparents, didn't we? Why is it not okay anymore? I don't know. But Kellogg found if you eat breakfast, dinner, supper at the same time, it helps with peristalsis. The last thing that Kellogg really hit on, he said we should be as the natives. When we have an urge, go. Many times we're busy working at Walmart at the cash register. We're doing something in the office and we got to finish a project. And we ignore the urge. And Kellogg said we train our brain to ignore the urge. He says you have to retrain your brain. Remember potty training that we used to do for geriatric ladies? You would have them go into the bathroom with the nurse would turn the water on, and Mrs. Jones, do you feel that? Oh, I feel that urge. And then every 2 hours, you would have that lady go in there, in the bathroom, turn the water on, and retrain the brain of what that urge felt like. In the care plan, we call it potty training, and we could have that lady become able to be continent again. It's pretty cool. Well, Kellogg said the brain is the same way for constipation. So anytime you feel that urge, whatever you're doing, go. And the next time, whenever you feel, go. And then more frequently, Kellogg found that people would identify the urge more often, and you can retrain the brain to identify the urge for bowel movement. And then it can reduce the problem of constipation. Exercise, eat at the same time every day, abdominal massage. Now, Kellogg, do you know what he used for an abdominal massage? A cannonball. He would take a cannonball, wrap it with leather, tie it up like a softball, set it in the lower ascending, roll up, roll across, roll down, pick it up, set it, roll it. Y'all have seen people do, who's massage therapists? Anybody do massage therapy? You ever done, the massage to get it going? Stool for feet by the toilet. Who's ever heard of that? You put a little stool at the toilet, lift your legs up. I don't think they had a toilet in the Garden of Eden. Well, no, they didn't need it in the Garden of Eden. But afterwards, I don't think they needed it in the Garden of Eden. But I think later on, did they have toilets? No. Now, we had outhouses when I was a boy. But you still, the squatting, so it pulls the legs up and it helps. Magnesium, that's a great tool. Go to bowel tolerance. Great tool. It pulls more moisture into the colon. And magnesium, take as much as you can until you have a loose stool and back up. Prune juice, herb senna, cascara sagrada, haritaki. There's a bunch of stuff you can use for constipation. Prune juice. Whoever did prune juice when they were kids? Yeah. How about castor oil? Oh, yeah. Hemorrhoids. If constipation, use protocol. Many times hemorrhoids are due to straining. Aloe vera. You can take aloe vera and you can take the aloe vera leaf and you can carve the size of a suppository. Now remember where it's going. And then you can put a toothpick on it if you want to. Stick it in the freezer. You don't have to put a toothpick on it, but you can. Easier to grab. Put it in the freezer and freeze it hard. When you need it, take it out, put some lubricant on it, take the toothpick out, and insert it as a suppository for internal hemorrhoids. Now don't do that when you're walking around. Gravity takes effect. Do it when you go to bed. And the aloe vera will sit in there and it will help to treat. Now Kellogg liked enemas a lot because he found that when you do orally, the digestive system breaks things down. So he liked just getting to the problem. And so you can do an aloe vera enema where you squirt aloe vera juice or gel as an enema. Apple cider vinegar, cabbage poultice for external poultices, external hemorrhoids. We talked about that last night. Coconut oil, witch hazel. Witch hazel works quite well on external hemorrhoids. Hydrotherapy, hot and cold douche. So here's what you do. Who knows what a potty chair is? Y'all know what a potty chair is. You take the seat out and you have the patient sit on the potty chair. You get behind them. It's best if it's ladies on ladies and men on men, or unless it's a spouse. And so then you take a hose, and we call it the douche. Who's ever done hydrotherapy? It's called the douche. I love the douche. It's great. And you take a hose about this big, and you can control the temperature, hot and cold. You get behind the patient, and they're sitting down. The hemorrhoid will drop. And you start with warm water, and you massage the hemorrhoid. They're looking the other way. Massage the hemorrhoid. And then for 3 minutes. And then you turn it to cold for 1 minute, massaging that hemorrhoid. And that's how you're doing hot and cold. The douche is a great tool. Get somebody with depression. Put them in the shower, and then get your douche and go plumb cold up and down that spine. It's amazing how well it is for depression. So hydrotherapy works good on the hemorrhoids. Routine, squat, don't sit at the toilet. Exercise, lose weight, that can be helpful. Probiotics can be helpful. Water. Soak the area with warm water for 10 to 15 minutes 3 times a day. A sitz bath, another hydrotherapy treatment. Ice pack or cold compresses, another hydrotherapy treatment. Pastor, I need some help. It's 7:46. Shall I go to questions? Because I think we're going to 8. Is that correct? Okay. So let me just do prostate real quick. The best thing I know for prostate, Duke University in 1990 told us that if a person's having prostate issues, stop all dairy. All dairy. And that's Duke University. Stop dairy. The best thing I found for prostate, for years we used things like saw palmetto, we used pumpkin seeds, but the best thing I found to shrink that prostate is Podiarco and black seed oil. A teaspoon twice a day of black seed oil. If it's really bad, at least 2 mLs of Podiarco a day. You can do as much as 3 times a day. That is the best thing I find. Internally, yes. Now, I learned this from a fellow down at Uchee Pine. If the prostate is enlarged and you can't get it to shrink, and if there is no bleeding, and if there is no cancer, you can do something that's been done for generations, and that is a digital massage. And what you do is you put on a glove, and you don't go backwards and forward. You go in, you feel the prostate. Now, a healthy prostate feels like this. But put your hand like this, it's harder. That's what an enlarged prostate feels like inside when you're feeling. And so you go in, you feel where it is. As you put your finger up to about to here, you'll feel it. And don't rub up and down. Go sideways, leg to leg. And that's called milking the prostate. But you do that massage for about 5 minutes. And you do that about 4 times a day. And I've seen PSAs come down doing that. And it helps to shrink that prostate. And that's been done for many years. So let's talk questions and answers. All right, hot off the press. Okay. So someone has gotten the herb cabinet and they're missing something, just get with me and I'll help you there. Anything to use for Alzheimer's disease. Back in 1985, I did a study on about 35 or 36 patients. 35 or 36. And all those patients were feeder patients. They could not feed themselves. It was in a daycare. We had some extra space, looking at extra ancillary revenue. And so I was in West Palm Beach, a lot of private pays there. And so I opened a adult daycare. And of those patients in the adult daycare, that many could not feed themselves due to Alzheimer's. We did 2 things. I didn't know any of this stuff back then. But what we did is, number 1 is we did Jeopardy type questions about when they were in their teens and 20s all day long. Jeopardy type questions of when they were in their teens and their 20s. The other thing we got, Tupperware makes it, and it's a little round ball. It's black, and it's blue, and it's red, and it's yellow, and you can pull it apart, and you put squares and circles. Y'all remember those? for the children. And they would, throughout the day, quite a bit of the day, if they weren't doing Jeopardy questions, they were putting those in there. And in 3 months, 100% of them could feed themselves. I do not know what happened after that because I left. I just didn't care for the area. And I wanted to go back home to the mountains in East Tennessee. So I don't know if they kept on or if there was continued improvement or not. Another thing you can do for Alzheimer's is make sure you're not using any aluminum. And there's two top things I can think of. You can go to the American, let's see, what is it called? Alzheimer's Disease Association or whatever it is, their website, and they talk about the use of blueberries. Now we know in my studies that they found in my studies that blueberries help prevent Alzheimer's in mice. But it's quite a few documented cases of where people used blueberry juice or blueberries, and they had significant improvement of Alzheimer's. Also, there's been showing proof of using coconut oil, 2 tablespoons, 3 times a day. Yes, ma'am. Not to my knowledge. It didn't in the mice study. It didn't say wild. It just said blueberries. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just going to mention something about prevention. There was a study that came out, I think not that long ago. If you use sauna 3 to 4 times a week, 40 minutes at a time, it's really great for Alzheimer's prevention. And interestingly, sweating is, I believe, one of the only ways that we can get rid of the metals.
Okay. So a dry sauna works better than a wet sauna for sweating. So she says she read a study where saunas help to, how often?
I think it was 3 to 4 times a week.
3 to 4 times a week.
40 minutes.
40 minutes for each time. And it helped, good sweating, and it helped to prevent Alzheimer's. Huge decrease. Okay. Okay, that's pre-Alzheimer's. Okay. We also know that lithium orotate has been used for years for prevention, but we also know that lithium orotate at 100 milligrams has been used for a number of years for Alzheimer's fits, where they have Alzheimer's patients get quite, they have a fit, and it helps to calm that patient down. Lithium orotate is an element in the ground, and it's just lithium, and there's aspartate and orotate, and it's just an element in the ground. Yes, sir. Oh, pardon? Oh, totally safe. Yes, actually, if you go to Europe, there's lithium springs or lithium lithium springs, and people drink the lithium water. They bathe in the lithium water.
Just wanted to remind those here, if you have a question, let me get to you with the microphone, just so that those on live stream can hear the questions along with the answers.
What do you do for cancer? Yes.
I have a question about vitamin C. What's a good kind to take? I've tried different kinds and I can have problems.
Liposomal is an excellent vitamin C. A lot of research has been done on ascorbic acid. But probably if you wanted your best one, my understanding, a good one would be the liposomal.
Would rose hips be a good vitamin C?
Yes, yes.
Replacement?
And actually, I went to a seminar one time, and the instructor was the nutritionist for the United States Navy SEALs. And she said there's more vitamin C in the cap of a strawberry than in an orange. And she said, so when you make your smoothie, let's say you put 6 or 8 strawberries in there, leave the caps on there, and you're getting a lot of vitamin C from the strawberry, just that little cap. Okay, what do you do for cancer, a question is. Well, that's a whole lecture. There's a lot of things you can do for cancer. I think one of the biggest things that causes cancer is a reduction in the immune system. Take care of your immune system. But there's a lot of things you can do, and I'll just list some things. A fever treatment will increase the white cell count 7-fold. It peaks at 5 hours, and it will not come back to normal until 3 days. Pardon? A fever treatment, you can do it in a bathtub or you can do it in a sauna. Get the oral temperature up to 102 to 104 for 30 minutes. Then you cool off with some water, go lay in a bed for 2 hours, according to Loma Linda's research with Charles Thomas. Thomas said that it would increase the white count 7-fold. I didn't believe it, so I had my nurses draw a bunch of labs on folks we were doing fever treatments on. Sure enough, it did. At 5 hours, everybody peaked at 7-fold at 5 hours. And then it doesn't come back to normal until 3 days. You can do that either in a tub, a bathtub, or in a sauna. It's just getting the oral temp up to the 102. If that patient cannot handle it for the 30 minutes, they can do 5 minutes. Stop. Don't say Walt said we got to keep going 30 minutes. Stop. Depends on that person's their vital force. And then as you keep doing it, they'll improve. Do that once a day. Yes? Yes, you're drinking water about every 5 minutes, sipping on water. You got an ice pack on the head. You're checking the blood pressure every 5 minutes. Yes, thank you. So that's one way. Another one is food-grade hydrogen peroxide is an excellent way. Be careful it's not, we talked about that I think last night, not the store-bought hydrogen peroxide. It's got to be food-grade. There's all kinds of herbs that are good for cancer. Podiarco, red clover, chaparral, calendula, burdock root, just a number of herbs that are good to fight cancer. Juicing is the best nutrition I've found for fighting cancer. The Gershon program, where you're doing 8 ounces on the hour for 12 to 13 hours. It used to be 12 hours, now it's 13 hours. There was concern that we didn't have enough calories in juicing, and so our nutritionists looked at, at that time we were doing Gershon's recommendation of every 12 hours, and at 96 ounces, there's over 2,000 calories in the typical juice. So there's plenty of calories there. Now they're doing 13 times, and so that's 104 ounces. Juicing is phenomenal for that. We did fruit juice, we did vegetable juice, not fruit juice. You can do a little apple, Granny Smith, but mostly just vegetable juice. You can do enemas of your teas that you're doing orally to get it also absorbed into the colon. You can do poultices, charcoal poultices, castor oil poultices, bentonite clay poultices, or your herbal poultices that you're doing for your herbal teas. You can do poultices of them. Let's say you have breast cancer and you're drinking mullein, you can do a mullein poultice. You have poke. Did I talk about poke last night? Okay, poke, does it grow here? Poke is a phenomenal herb. If you buy it already dried, you don't have to worry about it. But if it's fresh poke, like what we have, my garden grows poke better than anything else. Poke just grows tremendously in the southeast. So you take a piece of poke about the size of your thumb, put it in a pot, put a quart of water in it, boil it for 20 minutes. Throw that water away, it's poisonous. Put another quart of water in there, boil it for 20 minutes, throw that away, it's poisonous. The third quart of water that you boil for 20 minutes, you're not simmering it, you're boiling it. You boil it for 20 minutes. That third tea you can drink, and then you take that poke and I grate it, and then I'll put maybe some psyllium powder with it, and I'll make a hamburger patty, and you apply it. When you do breast cancer, and you only have breast cancer to one breast, you want to do symmetry to both breasts for visual appearance, but also it seems to work better, according to Dr. George Fletch's, treating both breast. Another one in breast cancer is lavender essential oil and frankincense essential oil. Again, putting it on there liberally 3 to 4 times a day. Again, both breast. I will warn you, the mullein poultice does itch. According to Mary Lou, she had breast cancer back about 15 years ago, and we did that. And she complained of that. She disliked the mullein poultice the most. She disliked the chaparral tea the most. Bee stinging, we talked about that earlier. You can bee sting if there's a tumor that you can find. Mary Lou's breast cancer would go down, as they would image, it would go down to less than half of a pea, and then it would come back up and down and up and down. I sent her to the Restrepo's down in Venezuela, and she had improvement, and she'd come home, and then I think the problem was I just couldn't hog tie her enough. And that's why I sent her down to Restrepo's, because I couldn't hog tie her. And so it got back about this size. And I asked a friend of mine who's a German physician, and he was there at the store, and I said, Sam, what do I need to do? Any ideas? He said, sting her. And it's German, sting her. Okay. So we went distal 1 inch and 5 times. She said 3 to 5, but I did 5. And leave it for 30 minutes and take it off. There's a lot of things you can do for cancer. Here's the thing on cancer. The most important thing for cancer. So I went to the beehive. I had bees. And so I took plastic tweezers that you find in these boxes of dates. And I would pick up the bee, and I just, fortunately it wasn't wintertime when they were closed up, and I just pushed the stinger against her, and it'd sting her. And then leave it, she'd cry, and I'd wait about a minute, and we'd do another one, and then leave it in for 30 minutes, pull it out with tweezers, and then put bee propolis on it. But here's the key with cancer. Cancer's serious stuff. And it's not like working with diabetes. Diabetes is easy. But the most important thing with cancer, people get tunnel vision on cancer, and they focus just on the treatment. And let's say you have another 10, 20, 30, 40 more years. But look what else you have. You've got eternity. Right? Don't focus all of your attention on the short term. Focus on the long term also. Yes, don't forget this. As I talked, I literally can promise curing cancer 100%. You got to do 4 things. You got to accept Christ as your Savior every day. You got to become real good friends with Him. Not just to know Him. Of Him. Know Him. If you've done something wrong, ask for forgiveness. Of the people you've done wrong and of God. Get you a Bible and read it. And if it says to do it, do it. If it says don't do it, don't do it. And the Bible says if you do those 4 things, you will have healing. It may not be now, but it will be when Jesus comes. And now you have eternity. But here's the hard thing. Why do you have two different cancers that may be the same cancers, and you have 2 different outcomes? The question is why? Mary Lou was on the phone with Carson's son, Aiden, back a couple weeks ago. And he asked a question. She told him the answer. And he said, why? And she explained it. And then he said, why? And then she explained it. And then he said, why? And I was listening to this over and over and over. It reminded me when I was a kid, I did that. My granddaddy would get on to me. But it's good for kids to ask questions. And after about the 4th time, she says, Aiden, you're just going to have to trust me. When you get older, you'll understand. Remember those days? Remember when our parents did that? We are as that 4-year-old. And we ask God, why? Why do you have 2 different outcomes? And God says, you're just going to have to trust me. I'll tell you someday when you get to heaven. And that's a serious thing, y'all. That relationship we have with Christ is the most important thing for cancer. It really is.
We talked a little bit about the SDX last night.
Yes.
I have a friend who is on prescription meds, and she's curious, is that going to counter anything?
I don't think it will, no. ACIAC is an excellent tool. And it's a tea. They actually have it in capsules. But the tea is the most, and I don't know of any contraindication there. How long shall we go? We can do some more question and answers tomorrow if we need to. Because I haven't even, y'all got a mess of questions.
I'll tell you what, I think there may be some here who need to leave. So why don't we do an official close? And then for those who would like to stay and ask some questions, we can go for another 20, 30 minutes.
Absolutely.
What does that sound like to you all? Does that sound reasonable? Yeah? Okay. Well, if it's unreasonable, you at least have choices. So thank you. Thank you, Walter Cross. And let's just close this session with prayer. And then those who need to leave can leave, and then we'll go for another 20 minutes, maybe to 8:30, with any further questions, and then we'll need to close it down at that point. All right? Tomorrow's schedule is 11 a.m. We have Walt Cross, who's going to be giving talking a little bit more on the spiritual side of things. He'll be talking about the enemy's greatest weapon, and that's at 11 o'clock. Tomorrow morning. And then afternoon, I think you have 3 or 4 presentations.
Yes.
And we do have a lunch in the afternoon, a potluck lunch right after a church service where Walt Cross is going to be sharing. So that will be, the church service usually ends at 12:30, and then the potluck lunch, and then right after that, we'll go into our afternoon presentations. Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and close down with prayer. Father in heaven, thank you so much for all the remedies, natural remedies that you've given to us to help reverse many diseases. The greatest disease, you gave the greatest remedy. The greatest disease being sin, and the greatest remedy being Jesus. I pray that each and every remedy we take would remind us of that great remedy that you've given to us. Bless us tonight. Be with each person as they go from this place. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. For those who need to leave, God bless you. For those who would like to stay, raise your hand. I'll bring the microphone to you, and you can ask a few questions.
Whoever bought that one, there was a set of 9 CDs. Can you check the numerical numbers on them and see if you got all 9? If there's a set that's got 2 of one DVD and not of the other. The numbers are on the spine. The numbers are on the spine. So if you got all sets of DVDs tonight, check your numbers before you leave.
And the 1 looks like a 7. The 7 has a dash through it like a French. So.
It's the herb cabinet.
Pardon? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes?
Do you have ideas for non-tuberculosis lung disease in the bacteria that's causing it is called Mycobacterium avium complex? Any ideas?
Yes. The best thing I have found for fighting infection in the lungs is nebulizing Allimed. It works very well. You do 1 ml, and 1 ml, and you can do that TID, and you can also take it PO. Normal dosing is 1 teaspoon twice a day. You can do as much as a tablespoon 3 times a day. according to the lab. 1 ml by itself. You don't have to add it with, no, just nebulize it straight. Yes, it works very well nebulizing it. And for a sinus issue, you can put on the nebulizer your mask and breathe it in, or breathe it through the mouthpiece for something from a pulmonary standpoint. Yes, ma'am.
Can you please address diabetes?
Yes, diabetes. I did mention I was going to talk about that tonight, didn't I? So diabetes, just on the quick side, it's a whole hour, 2-hour lecture of itself. But let's talk diabetes real quickly. You've got trillions of cells in the body, and around each cell you have an insulin receptor. And you have multiple insulin receptors around the cells. And what happens is when the cell needs glucose, the insulin opens the door. I'll just do this as an example to make it easy to see. It opens the door and allows glucose in the cell, and everybody's fine and happy. But I found 3 things that causes this insulin receptor not to work well, and that's called insulin resistance. If the cell gets too big and outside ideal body weight, if the cell gets clogged with fat, oil, dairy, or meat, or if there's too much inflammation. Harvard says the number 1 cause of inflammation in the United States is processed food. It could be sleep deprivation. There's a number of things that cause inflammation. So what do? You want to bring that cell, the body, to ideal body weight. And many people think type 2 diabetes is only obesity. You can have a person the pastor's size and still have type 2 diabetes. There's more reasons. So you shrink the cell to ideal body weight, and you can argue till the cows come home whether you want to use BMI or percent body fat. Most of the medical community uses the BMI, body mass index. Those in sports medicine are more prone to use percent body fat. But either one, as long as you're into ideal body weight. The second item is too much fat. In the South, we fry everything: maters, taters, ice cream, pickles, cheese, ochre, poke. We fry everything. If we don't fry it, we pour oil in it. And we use so much oil in the South, and we clog up the insulin receptor. And so Duke University, Cornell University, Cleveland Clinic, Dean Ornish, Pritikin, all those guys say stop all fats in reversing diabetes. And so you're not eating any fats. Obviously, there's some fat in the food, in the fruits and some of the vegetables, because remember, you got to have fats, proteins, carbs. You got to have some fats, but those big guys, stop the oils, stop the meat, stop the dairy, stop the nuts and seeds. Be cautious on the avocados and the olives; those have a lot of fats. And so those guys stop that, and it's really cool. It's like sin. You stop sinning, it cleans up the body, right? Well, this is cool. They found that if you stop consuming those fats, that the body cleans those insulin receptors, and they start working again. And the other is inflammation. If you don't eat the processed foods, if you get your sleep, and if you manage that stress, those things that cause inflammation, that door starts working again. So you can either do it through the juice diet, like Joe Cross did with Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. You can do the Cornell diet, where you do the 3 fruits for breakfast and 1 cup of brown rice. Now, if you're a diabetic, type 2, we're talking type 2 here. If you're a type 2 diabetic, and let's say that bananas or grapes cause your blood sugar to go high, either try half of a serving or just don't do it all right now. You'll get there, but not right yet. And just use that fruit or if you're more challenged, go with the berries. So it's 3 servings. The servings each: orange, apple, pear, or half a cup little stuff: blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, or big stuff like you don't eat a whole pineapple, And so a whole big papaya. There's little papayas, but there's big papayas. You don't need a big papaya. You do half a cup of those guys. And then 1 cup of brown rice, and that's breakfast. For dinner is it's going to be a nice big old garden salad, all kinds of vegetables and everything, all kinds of vegetables. But don't put any dressing, no oil, no salt, no cheese, no meat. You can squeeze some lemon juice on it, or if you need to, some salsa on it, some low-sodium salsa on it. And 1 cup of brown rice. Brown rice is the protein. If you're having problems, let's say you also have gout, and some people with gout can't tolerate the brown rice, and so you can use quinoa, and we don't have the problems with gout that we do with quinoa as we do with the brown rice. I'm more interested in the brown rice for the cardiac effect, because brown rice bran, like wheat bran, brown rice bran is very helpful in reducing heart failure. And so I like the brown rice and the cardiac effect when you're using the Duke diet. Then you don't want to give supper. I remember I went to the clinic, and they were doing breakfast, dinner, but no supper. So I go in there and I talk to the doctors, and I say, listen, you got to have breakfast, dinner, supper, mid-morning snack, mid-afternoon snack, and an HS snack. Right? Hour of sleep. So they decide to play with me. Why? Standard of practice. It's what the American Dietetic Association says we're supposed to do. And then they asked me one more question, and I walked out of the room. How many diabetics you reverse where you come from? 0. We had over a 98% reversal rate of type 2 diabetes at that clinic. Proof is in the pudding. So I leave. I'm still not totally satisfied. Sometimes you just it's hard to get stuff out of your head that you've been taught. So I call up, guess who? Dr. Agatha. Dr. Agatha, they're only serving breakfast and dinner and no supper here. And she just laughed. She said, Brother Walt, it's okay. That's how you reverse type 2 diabetes. Breakfast means break fast. From supper to breakfast. She said, just extend that fast from dinner to breakfast, at least. Now, today is day 2 on the program in Rwanda. And so this morning when I was talking to them, I was lecturing, and yesterday was the first day they had started eating. We fasted them for 3 days. They eat nothing for 3 days. They drink water. If you want to really be aggressive, go 5 days. But we do 3 days. And so this morning, I asked them, I said, how was the mangoes? Oh, they were good. How was the avocados? Oh, they were good. In Africa, I don't care what the policy is on avocados. They're going to eat avocados all meals, no matter what you say. So when in Rome, you better do as the Romans. So I asked them this morning, I said, what if? I said, so what they're doing is they're doing 3 fruits, 1 cup of brown rice for dinner. They're doing the salad, 1 cup of brown rice. And there they only squeeze lemon juice on their salad. They don't have salsa. And I said, what do you think about the food? Oh, it's good. It was delicious. I said, what if we hadn't fasted for 3 days? Would the food been as good? No. But you fast them till the food tastes good. Also, that fasting process, Dr. Agatha found, it helps to reverse the diabetes faster. And for that extra 1.5% that we try to figure out what to do with, Dr. Agatha told me, fast them for 5 days. And for that hard group, many times you can get some of those guys too. So that's what you're doing for food, for diabetes. And you stay on that Duke diet until they have ideal body weight. But Walt, they're 340 pounds. I met a lady at Duke who lost 200 pounds on this program. But it's not enough nutrition. There's a guy that his doctor told him that he was going to die in 2 months. He had heart failure. EF, ejection fraction, was 20. And they said, you won't see 3 months. And so he called me. It was my father. And so I went to Nashville. I was actually in North Carolina, getting off at the Franklin, at the Fletcher exit when he called me. And he said, so I only got 3 months. I said, Dad, I'm coming to Nashville. So I went to Nashville, and we did the Duke diet. And we did some Hoffman berries and some CoQ10. And Dad lived 1 month shy of 6 years. He died of COVID, not the heart disease, though I'm sure his heart disease didn't help that. And, definitely put him more at risk. But I'd ask him through the 6 years, Dad, he got EF up to 30, but to keep him going, he needed to stay on the Duke diet, and so he stayed on it. And I said, isn't this diet boring? He said, yes. But he said, I would rather see my kids, my grandkids, and my great-grandkids than what I enjoy, what I like to eat. Does that make sense? And so it showed me that someone could be on this Duke diet for 6 years and have good health. And the lady who had lost 200 pounds at Duke, when I went to Duke to audit the program, did she do that in 3 months? 1 year? No, it took some time. And so it's healthy. Have a variety of vegetables, have a variety of fruit. But you stay on the diet until you have an ideal body weight, you have a normal A1C of 5.6 or less, and you have a glucose of less than 100, and you're not taking any medications for the diabetes. No insulin, no metformin, no medications. Now, a lot of people will say, well, Walt, how do you do this? And how do you address the medications? It's real simple. As the blood sugar comes down, and it comes down in that, say, 110s, or maybe in the 90s, call your healthcare provider and say, I'm doing the Duke program. How do you want me to adjust my meds? I'm eating a certain diet. I'm exercising 4 times a day. I'm drinking my water. I'm going to bed time. I'm going to bed by 9 o'clock, Doc. My blood sugar's coming down. It was here. It's coming down here. What do you want me to do to adjust it? And the doc he'll work with you on that. He'll tell you how to cut back. If you know sliding scale, it's going to be easy for you. The second thing is water. You got to drink adequate water. Body weight divided by 2 if you're over 128 pounds. If you're under 128 pounds, which you probably don't have diabetes, but you could, remember, 4 a day for those people. Everybody over 128 pounds, body weight divided by 2. A little extra if you're doing more exercise or whatever. Exercise. Duke University found that you needed to exercise 4 times a day. I remember I was noticing, I would sit down with my patients at 6 o'clock in the morning, and let's say their blood sugar is 170, 180, and I would send them on a power walk for 30 minutes. They'd come back, it'd be one of the 120s, 130s. And so I told a buddy of mine, he was a professor at Loma Linda. He said, that's interesting. 2 years later, I saw him at ASI in Michigan. And we were in the convention hall, and he says, Walt, remember what you told me 2 years ago about walking, doing power walks and dropping their blood sugar? I said, yeah. He said, we did a study at Loma Linda on this. He said, we found that it lowers, a 20-minute power walk lowers the blood sugar more than 1 shot of insulin. A 20-minute power walk. So to go back now to Duke, where Duke was, Dr. Kempner found that we needed to exercise 4 times a day. So do that power walk, 20 minutes, 4 times a day. That's like 4 shots of insulin. And Kempner figured that out back in the 30s. Whatever they can do, as much as they can do, up to 20 minutes. Or they can do more. Kempner put them in the gym for 1 hour, 4 times a day. That's not reasonable and obtainable for most people. And so do as much as they can. Yes, sir?
We had a patient that couldn't walk 450 pounds and just gave her exercises with her arm.
Absolutely.
And then started using like a mild weight, like a can of soup.
Exactly.
Pretty soon she was able to facilitate short walks, but she worked up to where she was able to start walking.
That's exactly how you do it. Start small. And as they increase their energy, as they increase that circulation with that little bit that you're doing, they're going to be able to do more and more. Have them clap their hands. Take a piece of newspaper and bang on their legs. Try this. Take your ear and rub your ears. Y'all try this. Rub your ears real good and hard. Just rub them real good and hard. Just keep rubbing real good and hard. I mean real good and hard. Okay? Can you feel that? Now, we're in a church, so I'm not going to have you clap. I don't believe in clapping in church. But anyway, you clap your hands, stop. Clap your hands, stop. You feel microcirculation. You'll feel that tingling in your hands. So patients that were in wheelchairs, we would have them do that type of thing, just as you were talking about, a can of soup or whatever it is. And the more you do, many times the more they're able to do. You're exactly right. Thank you. I guess that's what we do for type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is a whole different animal. It's a whole other disease. Dr. Crane at Loma Linda found that the number one cause of type 1 diabetes was dairy. He found that he could reverse type 1 diabetes if he could catch it in the honeymoon stage. At that time, it was believed that the honeymoon stage was 12 months, but if he could definitely catch it and within 8 months of onset, he found he could reverse type 1 diabetes. The problem is catching it in the honeymoon stage. Parents aren't there observing their children anymore. The teachers might, but parents are too busy doing whatever. They don't identify those symptoms or signs. Maybe the school teacher does or the school nurse does, and finally, and then we're outside of the honeymoon period or way into it. So what he would do is 3 things. Number 1, take them off dairy. If that's the cause, get them off of it. Number 2, he used the New Zealand study. And you can go to NIH. You can go to the Google and type in diabetes type 1, New Zealand study with niacinamide. It's a B3. There's niacin and niacinamide. There's different B3s. And they did a study of where per kilogram they did so many milligrams, and it was very low dose. It wasn't max dose at all. It was very low dose. And found improvement with type 1s. And then there was later studies with even people who had had it for a while and found improvements using niacinamide for type 1. And the third thing Kipner did is something we don't normally do, and that is immediately after a meal, exercise that child hard, running, playing. We don't usually do that because it takes away from digestion. But he found it to be beneficial in reversing type 1. Who's ever watched the movie Simply Raw? Check it out. Simply Raw. It's a documentary. They're out of New Mexico or Arizona. Dr. Cousins is the medical director there. He's a physician. And he does a program for type 2 diabetes, eating just raw. Well, he had a young black boy come through the class, and they thought he was a type 2, reversed the diabetes. Actually, it turned out, as they investigated, he was a type 1, actually, when they started looking. And he reversed the type 1. That young boy's gone to school, got his doctorate degree, and he's helping other type 1s by eating Simply Raw. Okay, go to Google or NIH, and you can put in New Zealand study, niacinamide, type 1 diabetes. And that will take you to the research that you can look up. Yes. I like the NIH studies, and there's multiple studies on it that you can look at. Yes, ma'am.
I understand that Celtic sea salt, if you take it before drinking water, will help absorb the water so that it's not just going through your system, but it's, can you speak to that?
I know Barbara talks about that. I don't know the physiology on that, no. Yes.
I have 2 questions, but
Yes.
I don't think you have time to discuss them. If you could discuss them at some point in time. One is COVID and the natural cures that you saw that was most helpful. I know you had COVID, I've talked to you on the phone, but if you have a broader regiment of what you think is best as we anticipate things that
Yes,
might be coming
go
in the
that
future.
direction again.
The other question is how you can distinguish between actual medical and psychiatric illness versus spiritual harassment or spiritual.
Yes, two good questions.
And that's for later. I don't
Yes.
think we can answer those questions now.
Pastor, how long are we going?
8:30.
We're at 8:31. So it sounds like a topic for tomorrow. And I am here for y'all. I am gone at least 3 weekends a month. I was gone all of August. I'm here because I truly believe Jesus is coming soon. And I find that helping people with health is a door by which we can share the gospel. And if a church is interested in learning how to become medical missionaries, I believe I need to go help those people because there's not many people going out helping. Because we need soldiers telling people about Jesus. And so I'm here to help y'all. So tomorrow I'll be glad to talk on those subjects if we can figure out how to do more question and answers. All right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you each one for coming. We wanted to stick with what I shared with you just to end at 8:30. If you have any other questions, we have a full day tomorrow. Hope that you can join us tomorrow for starting at 11 o'clock. We do have a morning Bible study at 9:30. If you can come to that, I know you'll be blessed. And then the service in the afternoon or at 11, and then the rest of the presentations in the afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a good night. Oh, great. If you have more questions, write them down, and he'll be sure to get to those. Thank you.